Welcome to episode 11, the haunted edition of the Civil War Breakfast Club, joined by the good witch of the North, Mary Shelley Frankenstein Fincher. I am merely Darren Weeks, and today is a special day, Mary, because we are joined by our very first guest, the great Jen Vincent Price is joining us here today, and we're going to talk about the haunted Civil War, because you know why? Because Halloween is this weekend. Ladies, it's a pleasure to see you both. How are you both doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. This is living the life.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We had a really good episode last week too, and a great
We
Facebook Live.
did, talking about alcohol in the Civil War, which is near and dear to everyone's heart, I think, realistically. But it was a good conversation. I thought it was a lot of fun. Always a good live. It was great to see more and more people jumping on and talking about that, because it's about anything. Because it's just fun. It's a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Those who are regulars to the live will recognize our lovely guest, Jen, from the great state, I guess, of Indiana, which is a little bit too close to Notre Dame for my love, but that's okay.
I'm on the other side, though. I'm closer to Illinois.
Yeah. She graciously decided to join us today. She's a paranormal enthusiast, I guess is a way we can say, right?
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Okay. We talked about that last night during the dress rehearsal. I don't know what we're going to call you, but she's someone like the rest of us who are really interested in a lot of things. And
Yeah, I would name myself as that as well, an enthusiast.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, I think everybody is fascinated by anything supernatural, paranormal. I mean, every major religion is based on some sort of afterlife. So it's just whether you're religious or not, you're fascinated by it. There's a reason why those movies always sell out, because they're really, really cool. And as we approach Halloween, it's great to think about some of the great Civil War ghost stories. And anybody who's been to any of the battlefields is very aware, whether you believe it or not. This is one of those things that's fun. It's a Halloween episode, and we're going to tell some ghost stories. We're sitting around the campfire, drinking beers, watching Mary get slowly intoxicated as we talk about ghost stories. And that's really what we want to look into this, is just not to get into the do you believe ghosts, do you not believe ghosts. We're just going to have fun talking about some of the famous stories, and we've all heard of them. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And what are we all drinking tonight? Because that's the important thing.
Well,
let's start with our guest, including your mug.
Okay. I am drinking Cider Boys Grand Mimosa. I'm not a big beer person, but I love a good hard cider. And I am drinking it out of an R2-D2 mug, which actually is Civil War, because I learned from following you guys on Twitter that R2 was with President Lincoln at Antietam.
Yes, he was.
That's a good point. Not a lot of people know that. You'd be surprised.
No, that's part of why I picked this mug. I thought I could bring it up and more people would know.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we're always trying to teach people.
Right.
That's our job. We're educators. Mary, what about you?
I was going to go with the pumpkin beer, but I'm like, I didn't really feel like anything that heavy tonight. So I'm drinking the Mutants Are Revolting from Flying Monkeys Craft Brewery. It's a crushable IPA, apparently. So
that's a lot of adjectives in that one.
There are, yes. I know.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm
excellent.
Balked at my English skills today. They're impressive.
You're doing very good. We'll do the Massachusetts thing later on. We'll test you on that one. So I am drinking, again, because it is Halloween, I'm drinking the Shipyard Pumpkin from Portland, Maine. And it's good. It's a good Portland beer, good pumpkin beer, and it's got a Ichabod Crane pumpkin head on it, so it's Halloweenish. So there we go.
And you're drinking out of your Mary Syrah
mug.
I'm
sorry. If I could try what the hell.
I forgot my mug too.
I'm drinking my Mary Syrah mug because she's a ghost, and that's the best I could do. I thought I had a ghost mug, but I didn't have one. Thank God.
I'm drinking out of my George Henry Thomas mug because I am going to mention Chickamauga tonight.
And he's the Rock, just like Charlie Brown got in his bag on Halloween. He got a rock.
Look at you.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it all goes back to Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
It does. It really does. We're going to talk about some great stories here. And I think, that the American Civil War has got a whole bunch. And I think even at the time, you read some of these old quotes from these Civil War folks, they talk about the paranormal. There's that quote that Joshua Chamberlain had where he says, in great deeds, something abides, on great fields, something stays.
Yes.
Forms change and pass, bodies disappear, but spirits linger to concentrate ground for the vision place of souls. And it's a great quote. It talks about how a lot of these people have come and they fought this really traumatic place and they died, and how their spirits stay to consecrate the field. And he's talking about the fact that perhaps they're still there and they're still blessing the field and consecrating the field. So it's kind of always been there. It's not a new phenomenon, but it's something that's that I think a lot of these guys are probably thinking of. People like to think that the ghost stuff is relatively new. They're thinking of Steinway Avenue and they're thinking of those types of ghost tours, but this has been around for a while. And so
it has.
It's just a great time to talk about it.
I actually found a story going back to 1861 in Savannah, where there was a doctor there who saw some soldiers walking across the road the day after First Manassas had been fought. And then he found out the next they were all dead.
Oh,
That
wow.
was one story that I read about with Savannah. That's just Darren, when you mentioned, this is not a new thing. That's the first one I thought of, was this doctor in Savannah that saw these soldiers and they waved at him, and then they were from Savannah, and he recognized them, and then he found out that they had already been killed at First Manassas.
I mean, I've been to a lot of the battlefields. I've been, obviously you guys have all been in Antietam and places like that. And for me, the only place I really get a real feeling is Gettysburg. It's just something about it. It's like someone described one time, what's it like? I'm like, when you go to a party and you go to use the bathroom and you go upstairs and you kind of creep open the medicine cabinet real quick and hope no one's looking, but you feel like someone is. That feeling is what you have in a place like Gettysburg. Like there are eyes all over you all the time. I remember the first time I ever went there, it just felt like I'd been before. In a strange way, I knew where this road went. I know how to get places here and there. And it just was one of those things that it was very spiritual thing. And I think a lot of people feel that. We mentioned before, Mary, that battlefields tend to call to you, right? No one's a fan of a battlefield. A battlefield picks you and embraces you and makes it your own. I think we can all speak to that.
I think so. And I know, Jen, you definitely relate to that, right?
Yeah, I would say Gettysburg #1, but Antietam is a close second. The more I go, I have a friend that lives there, and the more I go there, the more it's kind of like a tie between the two. In different ways, but yeah.
And so were you into like the paranormal before the history, or did the history come first?
As far as the Civil War, the history came first, but growing up, my mom was into like Unsolved Mysteries and all those kind of shows where they always did a lot of ghost stories and UFO stories. So I knew a couple Civil War ghost stories here and there, but for me personally, I would go to the places and spirits are like, hey girl, how's it going? And a lot of times they know that I can tell that they're there.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way to explain it.
Must have been the ghost of Butterfield you're right into then. I think he wants to take you to the Boo Barn.
Yeah. Well,
again, we're not here to judge.
It's just interesting because they can kind of sense when somebody is more aware of them, and they tend to kind of flock to those people, I think, at least in my experience. A lot of times I'm like, okay, guys, I'm going home. You stay here.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you go to a foreign country or somewhere and everyone speaks a different language, and you hear someone speaking English and you automatically are gravitated towards them because you're maybe it's the same type of concept, if that's such a thing, where
it makes sense.
They feel like you're sensitive, you can see them, you can feel them, and you're like, shit, this person can actually see me. Maybe I can make some sort of contact. Who knows? That's the part about it, is people who believe stuff, people who don't believe stuff, it really doesn't matter. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all going to find out eventually.
Yeah, but I think there's
sooner than others, probably.
There's a lot of people, I think, that have had experiences at battlefields that they can't explain. Like I know I have every single time I've gone, from my first visit to Gettysburg when I was 10. Things that I can't explain. Like I get different feelings at different places, some positive, some negative, and there's a definite energy there that exists, I think.
I mean, assuming all the stories you read about the paranormal are true, what better place than a battlefield, right? I mean, it's, they say that it's caused by traumatic experiences, large sudden loss of life, your body being ripped apart at a young age, unexpectedly. I mean, isn't that every battlefield, if you really think about it? I mean, these are 19, 20-year-old kids, a little older, give or take. Some of these guys got vaporized by artillery. Maybe never even knew they even died. Yeah. So if there's going to be a place they're going to hang around, it's going to be there, right? And when a lot of people with reenactors showing up and dressed up in the period clothes and playing the same songs and firing artillery themselves, it seems like it'd be, if there is a certain synergy to kind of meet and connect at a certain psychological type level, it seems like that would be the place, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And, there's a lot of things. I know we talked before about the land, and we had talked about how running water is with energy tends to create spirit activity, and limestone and granite. That would explain the Rosewoods clown, Mary, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? An evil ghost lurking in the woods trying to get me that one day. You joke about it. That wasn't a laughing matter. Gettysburg's one that gets to me, though. Antietam too, lost in the cornfield, scared notwithstanding. But it just feels like the energy calls to people different ways, and you're attracted to it. There's a whole bunch of great stories, and people will joke and talk about the whole ghost industry in these towns, and it's a big part of the industry, but it's all fun and entertainment.
But the stories are based in history too.
Right. I mean, they all are.
Like there is a
We've all heard there were some great ones. I mean, we'll tell some stories here in a few minutes about some of the more popular ones. And anybody who knows Mark Nesbitt from
Mm-hmm.
Ghost of Gettysburg. I got the company shirt on today. Knows the tours. Anybody who knows the Farnsworth people, anybody who stumbled up Steinway on their way home from Blue and Gray Mary has run into the ghost people, not just spirits, but actual ghost people, but you see them. And you know what? A lot of them are entertainments, and a lot of the real uber nerds get all kind of bent about it. But to your point, Mary, it is based on history, right?
Yep. The stories are usually, they have some bearing in history as to who the spirit is in them and all that. Like there is a meaning behind it. And I know the one that I'm going to talk about with Chickamauga, he's got a couple different origin stories, but still it's something that's based in history for sure.
I mean, we could talk about some stories. I mean, anybody who has read any of the Ghosts of Gettysburg books or any of the Haunted Civil War books knows some of the classic ones. I know Jen's got some good ones that she wants to tell us about. But listen, just don't be scary, okay? This is a kid's show. Actually, you know what?
Yeah, it's not a fucking
Wait,
kid's
Say with the
show.
F-bombs.
I have potty mouth over here ruin the kids show thing. So whatever you want, scare the hell out of us. Go right ahead. The E is going to be next to this no matter what. So you might as well just go ahead and. But just don't scare me, okay? I got to sleep tonight.
Yes, let's say. Okay. I'm going to start out with one more popular story that I've heard, and then I'll tell a personal story.
Okay.
The first one that I brought with me comes from Antietam Battlefield. I've never seen this. I've never heard of anyone seeing this, but my friend heard a story through someone else who had seen it. It was the Wounded Lion statue. They have seen the Wounded Lion walking around. And I was like, there's no way I would stop and watch that because he's right on Maryland 65, which is a busy road. But I always wonder when I go by, I always kind of listen when I walk by that statue up the trail to see if he's growling or anything, but I've never heard or seen anything there. But then this last time I was there visiting a friend of mine who lives in Sharpsburg, we snuck across the street to I believe it's the Alfred Hoffenberger farm, and there's a cottage that's being restored, and there were burial mounds through there, and that was eerie. I can't say anything happened, but it was just crossing that street was very eerie.
I've been to that monument. There's energy at the different monuments and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you could definitely feel it. Just the energy. It's very stiff and there.
Yeah. The house that we went to visit is actually right across the street from that, so that the whole area just kind of feels. It felt different, especially you could tell when we walked out of there and went across the street again. It was okay, it feels different when you cross that fence. And I don't know how else to explain it. There's just something in the air.
Yeah.
It's the best thing, whether it's the oxygen or the thin air, or it just feels the air leaving your body. You just feel it. I hadn't heard that story. That's a good story.
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. Yeah, and that's actually one of my favorite monuments on Antietam Battlefield. And it's kind of off from everything else because it's on the side of a highway.
Yeah.
And
you can there's trails you can take to get there. Laura's taken me on those. So
she took me on those too it was an awesome tour.
Yeah.
It was I think I walked 20,000 steps that day with her, which was awesome. And I've got a picture with her by the monument too. That battlefield definitely felt different to me than what Gettysburg and Chickamauga do, but it still had an energy about it.
And I think for me, because I've stayed in their house, which is actually been documented in ghost story books about that area. There's some stories there because there were 3 Confederate soldiers killed, 2 of them in what was a summer kitchen and is now my friend's Lincoln room. And then there was one out back by the well. They had some weird things happen when they moved in. She had a picture of President Lincoln, and it was Confederate soldiers that were killed. She kept finding it face down on the floor, off a bookshelf. And the thing is, it had to go over other little figurines to get to the floor, but it didn't fall because none of those other things were disturbed. But it was always face down on the floor, and it wasn't shattered, so it was set down on the floor.
Oh, wow.
So she thinks something in the house did not care for President Lincoln.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I mean, most of my ghost story type things have always been kind of basic Gettysburg, just because that's where I've always kind of gone. But there's a story, and we talked about this, I think, yesterday. We talked about the 2 administrators in the old dorm, the elevator. So for those who haven't heard that story, that's a good one too. So, Gettysburg College was Pennsylvania College back in the day. It was only a couple of buildings. I think it was 3 buildings, wasn't too big. One of the buildings was called Pennsylvania Hall. It's called Old Dorm now. It's that big white building. It's an administration building now, and apparently was used as a field hospital during the battle, like a lot of those buildings were. So you had a lot of amputations, you had a lot of shit going on and stuff like that. Well, there's that story where these 2 administrators were leaving for work at the end of the day, and they're taking the elevator down to the first floor to get out. And the elevator just kind of malfunctions and goes right by the first floor and goes right into the basement. And finally the door opens, and instead of a basement, it's this scene from an amputation where doctors are amputating bodies, and people are screaming, and they're just staring at it, and they're just apparently stunned. And finally they got the door shut. They freaked out, and I guess they called the campus police, and the police showed up, and they thought it was some sort of fraternity prank or some sort of college prank, and they got there and there was nothing. It was just totally empty. I sit there and say, well, maybe these are stories, but these are administrators at a college, right? This isn't a couple of people stumbling home after a ghost tour after a couple of nights of drinking and seeing stuff. So who knows, right? Maybe they did see something. Maybe what kind of haunting it was. There are really two primary types of hauntings. There's, in general know this, there's the intelligent hauntings, which they're aware you're there. Then there are things called residual hauntings. Residual hauntings are basically like they're running through tape, running over and over and over again. So it's like you're watching a movie against the wall, and it doesn't know you're there, and eventually the energy runs out and finally disappears. And so something like that would be probably considered like a residual haunting, where it was a situation where they saw something like a time and some sort of nexus thing where they connected again. And that's probably the most common type of haunting, based on my understanding, is the residual stuff, where they don't see you, you don't see them. They're not even really there. It's just all you're seeing is like almost like a projection of a past scene is existing again. But basically that's kind of what I think a lot of them are. And that's probably the most popular one. I mean, that's a good story. I think there's a lot of them like that, but that one always kind of freaked me out a little bit, because I'm not a big elevator guy anyway. And admittedly, when I get off the elevator, every so often I'd be like, Mr. Marbles, it's going to open up. And then you're going to see, that'd be kind of cool to see that, but especially there. That story always stuck with me a little bit just because of the whole, I don't know, legitimacy of it all with the people who reported it. Because anybody can run into some ghost place and say, yeah, I saw a ghost, boo. But for people like that, it was funny. Last summer, Mary knows this story. I was there, and one of the friends I was with, he had a little too much Thirsty Farmer one night, so it was 8 o'clock at night, and he passed out, and so I needed something to do. So I ended up going to the Oliver Otis Howard statue, which I tend to do. I was sitting up there with my cigar, and it was about 10 o'clock at night. It was dark, and I had my Union Blue jacket on and my blue kepi hat on, but I had light blue shorts because it was summertime. I went with the pants. So I'm sitting there on the platform and watching this, the fireflies and the heat lightning and everything that was going on over Culp's Hill. And all of a sudden, these kids came stumbling up, and they just happened to see me, and they freaked out because they thought I was a ghost. I was like, boo, right? And it was just dark enough where you could see my top half because I had no pants on. I just had the shorts on. Okay, I had pants on, Mary. Okay, don't friggin' start. Okay, this isn't the boat, Mary. This isn't the boat show. Okay, this is Gettysburg.
It's not the Bang Barn.
It's not the Bang Barn or the Boo Barn. And so the funny part about it is the kids are in full gallop down the hill, running right down towards 33rd Massachusetts Monument, full speed. And I hear this little girl yell, "He didn't have any legs."
At some point, Darren's going to be in a history book.
Right. And the best part about that is for years, they're going to tell their grandkids the time they saw a ghost at Gettysburg, right? So it's a funny story, but you wonder how many of these stories are like that. Yeah. That's why it's always fun to hear from more of a legitimate source. And two college admins who, if they're like the ones at my college, aren't the most fun people to deal with, so they're probably not going to lie about it. That's what I put a little credence to, I think, because it hits all the buttons. That a residual haunting, a place where something happened before, people who normally wouldn't report these type of things, and I guess they were totally freaked out about it. And I guess and they reported the police, and it's on record somewhere. So
yeah, I've got one kind of similar to that at Gettysburg. I saw this on Haunted History years ago, but they were talking about a group of foreign dignitaries, and I don't remember where the gentlemen were from, but they were on like a private tour with probably a battlefield guide, and they saw soldiers marching in formation. And when they got back to the visitor center, someone came out and said, how was your tour? And they said, it was great. Thank you so much for arranging that demonstration of soldiers marching. And they're like, we have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't that freak you out, though? You're at the battlefield, you're having a day, just chilling, and you're not expecting to see it. Although the ghost thing, it's kind of always in the back of my mind a little bit at a place like Gettysburg, because you can kind of always kind of sense the reality of it. And so there's just something there. But then if you see something, that would be amazing. I think that'd be pretty cool, actually. Yeah. How I'd react to that, I think I'd be kind of cool with this. Mary, you'd freak out probably. You'd yell, "You fucker!"
That's the approach I should have taken. But
instead of Mary will be a ghost. She'll say, "Boo, fucker!"
And we'll be like, "Hi, Mary, how are you?"
Yeah.
And she'll be like, her little glowing hand floating in the air with her finger.
Oh, look at the ghost of Fincher.
Just a hand going by giving you the finger.
Why does that ghost smell like IPAs? Oh, the ghost of Fincher. But The other story I think of all the time with Gettysburg is the Blue Boy story. That's the other one I
Yeah,
always
that
think
one's
about.
creepy.
And that one's kind of creepy too, because it's just the whole thing. I mean, the Blue Boy story. Have you heard of this one, Mary? All right.
It's creepy.
All right, I want to scare you, okay? If you're
Okay.
scared, you want me to stop, just let me know, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Just shut your eyes and think of Christmas and think of peaceful thoughts. You'll be happy. Don't be too scared. I don't want to hear it later. I want to get bitched at, okay? So basically, the Blue Boy is basically a story where this is back at Gettysburg College again. Now, it was in one of the buildings that wasn't there at the time of the battle. It was built around 1870. It was Stevens Hall. And at the time, it was a prep school for Gettysburg College. And it was something that you had a lot of basically later, probably, I'm not sure when the story probably really happened, but at the time, as I understood it, at the time, a girls' dorm for Gettysburg College, so it was just all women who were there. There used to be an orphanage, as everybody knows, in Gettysburg, up the street across from the Jenny Wade house, up in that area. There was a mistress who I'm sure you guys know about, named Rosa Carmichael.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she, I guess, was a real bitch. I mean, she was abusing the kids. She was tying them to poles. Just make them sleep outside in the snow. I mean, these are orphans. I mean, who the fuck does this? You know, and she was just abusing the kids. And it came out later on, actually later. And it's one of the more haunted places in Gettysburg, actually. I think Ghost Hunters has been there. I think Ghost Hunters International, whatever the hell. Well, it's like 1,000. But well, apparently one day this kid escaped. He got the hell out of Dodge and he escaped from the orphanage. And he must have gone right down Baltimore Pike, past the Blue and Gray, and kept going. And he ended up at this Stevens Hall at Gettysburg College. So he went pretty much a far way. And it was the winter time, so it was really, really cold. He got inside the building somehow, the dorm with these two girls. And by then, the word must have got out that this kid was missing because they were looking for whoever the headmaster at the school was, or the dorm, probably the RA type thing at the time, was basically looking in the rooms for this kid. And so they knock on the door. Okay. That was me. That wasn't a ghost, Mary, just so you know. It was me knocking. I'll freak you out. Okay. So what happened was she's knocking on the door and they're like, shit. And so they had nowhere to hide them. So they open up a window and they put on the window ledge on the 3rd floor. Now it's snowing out and it's cold and it's shitty. It's a miserable freaking place. And they shut the window and they come in and inspect the room. They can't find them until they leave. The RA must have been like, there's something up because something's not right. You girls need to come with me and tell me what's going on. So they end up leaving and the kid's still outside the window. And they came back like an hour or so later. They open up the window and the kid's gone. Now they're on the 3rd floor. And so they're freaking out. They run downstairs. There's no footsteps. He didn't fall out the window. He just apparently vanished and they couldn't find him. And so time goes on. And I guess years later, this is still a dorm. It's still I assume it's still a co-ed. I don't know if it's a co-ed now or it's still girls, doesn't really matter. But where people will still open up the windows and you'll see a faint image of a boy who's now blue because he's frozen, who's looking at them from the 3rd floor out the glass. And it's one of the more famous Gettysburg stories. Sometimes he'll write on the inside of the "Help Me" or whatever the hell he writes inside. But there's been many stories, and even recently, where they'll look out the window in the wintertime and they'll see a distant silhouetted vision of a boy, like blue frozen, looking at them from the outside of the glass on the 3rd floor. And apparently it's freaked a lot of people out. And whether it's true or not, I don't know. It all goes back to what you think. But it's definitely one of the more popular stories. I know I think it's in one of Mark Nesbitt's books. He writes about it. I've seen it in a couple of different places. So that's what I definitely think about when I think of Gettysburg. And that's just you're thinking of the whole children thing and all that stuff. That's just a miserable story. But no one knows what happened to him.
So Jen, do you have some more stories to share with us?
Yeah. I do. Actually, my sister and I, we had gone on a ghost tour where you ended up, and it was like a museum then. Now I think it's the Diorama Cat Museum is the orphanage. We actually went in the basement and people had set up like all these toys for the kids and things like that. And they said that they would move around and stuff like that. And they would change them out sometimes so the kids didn't get bored. And I don't know if like how slanted the floor was or anything, but on this tour, they had us roll a ball and it stopped maybe 5 or 10 feet away and then rolled back to us.
Wow.
That was interesting.
Yeah, that's creepy.
Since he was talking about the elevator story, I would throw in one thing about the one that Darren told. I heard in one version that I heard the surgeon was actually beckoning the two ladies, the administration people, to try to come and help. He was like waving at them to come in and help him with surgery. And that's when they kind of panicked and like got the elevator to close.
Can you imagine being beckoned by a ghost surgeon?
You know what? I'd have been back up the elevator.
That's a total fuck this situation right there. Nope.
Yeah.
That's a nope all over. If I see a ghost beckoning me,
I'd be like, no, fucker, that's not happening.
Yeah. A, surgery, B, ghost, C, I'm gone.
Now Finch would be like, you have beer in there? Maybe.
Fucker.
I just met you.
Yeah,
But that
so-
would be scary.
Yeah.
And that, so that would actually be more, you wonder if that's of the intelligent hunting variety then, right? If they were really beckoning, or he was just beckoning off into space to, let me
Yeah.
know.
If somebody had been in that space at the time,
And he was
where
trying
the
to get
other one
them.
was, like trying to get them
Yeah.
to come back over, right?
Yeah, but it looked like he was waving at the two ladies.
It's a hell of a
Either-
coincidence. And, I remember the first time I ever went to Gettysburg, the very first time, and I remember being up a little round top. No, what the hell? It was Spangler Spring. I was up at Spangler Spring, which is by Culp's Hill. I'm sure everybody's been there. And we were there late one time, probably later than we should have been. We were out there, and we were looking up towards the hill, up a little, up almost a little Kennesaw, but small Culp's Hill and then big Culp's Hill. It looked like in the woods heading where that tower is, like there were these lights, like street lights, and there are no street lights up there. They almost look like little campfires up in the hill. And who knows what they were, but I remember we decided to go check them out. So we walked up there looking for them. And as we got closer, they just disappeared. So whatever the hell I don't know, it was something reflecting off the, they try to debunk the stuff. It could be anything.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah.
but
I've heard of that happening at Burnside Bridge.
Oh, really? Like,
Hmm. The same thing with the blue lights that disappear as you get close.
oh, wow. And have you had any
Well,
other, do you have any other Antietam stories? Because that's not, Gettysburg is the popular battlefield to talk about.
The blue lights there. I know they say that now it's Burnside Bridge, but you have the ghost there, like the blue lights, and then they say like you can hear the soldiers running down the hill to take the bridge. And then some of the farm, I want to say like the Piper Farm, they say is haunted, and I don't know by who, but they say the Piper Farm is haunted. And then there was one other spot, I'm trying to think, but there's several different places there.
Yeah,
Several
I-
different places
I've
there.
heard that before about them too. And I know like Chickamauga is very haunted.
Yeah, I've heard stories from that one.
Yeah, like the one from there that's the most popular one that I found is Green Eyes, which there's two different origins. One that he is half man, half beast, and he's got like long stringy hair and you just see these green eyes. But the other is that he's a Confederate soldier.
Okay.
And he's just a floating head and he's looking for his body. And he was apparently killed, like it was 16 different Union soldiers that were involved in his killing or something like that. Like
Wow.
it was crazy.
Really?
And then there's also the White Lady too, which
Yeah.
I know that exists at Gettysburg and stuff like that. But I do know from my own personal experience at Chickamauga that I had my own experience at Bragg's headquarters, parked the car, and I was about 1.5 miles from his headquarters, and I started walking and doing a Facebook Live. The more I started, I guess, bashing him, my cell phone signal started to get all funny, and then it just suddenly dropped. And then when I got to his headquarters, the energy there was so negative that I couldn't stay. And I just like took off.
They say they say
No.
electronics energy. They sap the energy from the electron. I mean, I've seen that.
Yeah. This is it was probably the most negative spot on the battlefield was Bragg's headquarters, which honestly doesn't surprise me. The most positive spot where there's really high energy is Snodgrass Hill. And the other thing too that has happened to me at Chickamauga that happens at a lot of battlefields is I've heard the cannons that nobody else hears.
Oh, wow. That happened to my friend in Gettysburg, actually. I had taken my friend's daughter to Gettysburg for the 150th. She was 17 and her mom's like, I can't afford to send me and Andy, can you take her with you? I said, yeah, just write a letter that says I have permission to make decisions and take her across state lines because she's a minor, and I'll take her wherever she wants to go. So I promised her we'd go on her first ghost tour. So I took her on her ghost tour, which was amazing. I'll get to that in a minute. But while we were on the ghost tour, my other friend heard cannons in our hotel room. She didn't hear them outside when she went out to look, but she heard them when she was in the hotel room. She could hear cannons firing.
Yeah, that was mine. Was I was sitting on Snodgrass Hill with somebody and I heard cannons. We were back at the hotel that night and I'm like, did you hear those cannons? And he was like, no, all I heard was birds. And so then I checked. There had been no artillery demonstrations that day, but I distinctly remember hearing cannons.
Mary, when you were at Bragg's headquarters, you notice all the generals there together sleeping?
No.
You notice they were all together?
No,
They were all there? You
They
sure?
were not in the same room.
Because that would be a good way to prove they're all in the same room if you
They
saw
weren't
the
in the
ghosts
same
together
room.
there.
They weren't in the same room.
I think they were.
They
I
weren't.
think you were. I think I was just proven correctly by the ghosts of
They weren't in the same room.
Chickamauga.
They weren't in the same room. So Jen, you said you had something when you were with your.
She wanted to go on a tour. She had never been to Gettysburg, and we went for the 150th. So I was like, we'll walk up and dine Steinway the first night. You pick the ghost tour, and I'll buy your ticket since it's your first one. So she picked the Farnsworth House Mature Tour. And I was like, okay, you're 17. I know you and your mom watch rated R movies. That's fine. We'll do this one. So we're sitting there, and we're sitting on the steps of the Farnsworth house getting ready to go. And she's like, "Are you scared?" I said, "No, nothing ever happens on these things." We go into they take you in the house and they talk and get you going for a little bit. And then they take you out into an area they call the Grove. And they start telling this story of a young girl who died shortly after the battle. She apparently had some kind of health problem. I've heard a heart condition. I've heard other things, but basically with all the stress after the battle, her family didn't have time to take care of her the way they should have, and she ended up passing away. But they said she passed away and she kind of knew that her parents just let her fade away, and she was super angry about it. And so they say that her angry spirit still haunts the woods in that area. So we're sitting there and I'm starting to get a little bit spooked. I felt like something was watching us.
Yeah.
So I'm looking around and I'm like, what in the world? There's nothing behind us. Cause we were right up against like a fence. And I was like, there's nothing behind us. So then I'm looking at our tour guide, and behind him in the trees, I can see a little glowing white figure. So then I'm like, oh shit, if this story is true, that's her.
Yeah.
Because it felt super angry. And we stopped and talked to the tour guides afterwards, and they said that one other person had seen her out there that night. And he looks at me and my friend, and he goes, "You know what? She is jealous of teenage girls who are in like a happy family unit."
Oh, wow.
And since I was there with Andy, she didn't like us.
Oh.
Because I was there with my friend's daughter, I've known her since she was like 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. So she's like my adopted little sister. I could see like a full person standing there.
Wow.
And that one did freak me out because she was just so pissed, and you could tell, like you could feel the anger.
Yeah.
So we're walking away, and I was like, "You stay here." But like, I remember going back to my hotel that night and just like, "Yeah, I'm not sleeping tonight. Anybody feel like watching a movie?"
Oh yeah, you can feel you can feel angry energy for sure. Like what I felt at Bragg's headquarters was very like, I'd never felt energy like that before. I'd never have it zap my cell phone.
Yeah.
Like that, and it took my cell phone a while before I got the signal back, and it had been perfectly fine. But when I started talking negatively about him, it was the closer I got to this place. I probably would go back to Bragg's headquarters just to see if I felt the same type of energy again, to, confirm it for myself that the energy is there. And to like your story as well, the history behind that, there's some really sad stories behind the basis for these ghost stories as well. And the history is just as interesting as the reported sightings of them too.
Here's a funny one. One of the first time I heard about Dan Sickles was through a ghost story. And what they said is that for years after he passed away, people that worked at the museum where his leg was felt like every year on the anniversary that he was there. Like he was coming back to visit it, because he had always gone to see it when he was alive. And they feel like when he passed away, he just kept doing that. So that's how I heard about Dan Sickles. And then I was like, this guy sounds like a riot. I have to learn more about him.
He was our guy from last weekend I went most to drink with. He was my guy.
Yeah. I think he'd be.
Now that he's haunting his own leg, that even makes him more of a reason to go drink. He's obviously a leg man, so that'd be something to hang out with,
Leg man.
He's obviously got a leg man. Back at the old Boo Barn with the ghosts of Butterfield and Humphreys and the Boo Barn. But again, I mean, it's not like this is new stuff going back to the guys. I mean, this. Devil's Den's a very popular place at Gettysburg that people go. And you just sit up there a little round top, and I like to sit up there and smoke my cigar and look at the battlefield. And all you see at Devil's Den is the flashes of lights. The ghost people trying to get orbs, Mary, trying to get orbs. You do that?
Yeah.
Or herbs.
Herbs.
Herbs, kind of like burbs without the B. There's a whole bunch of famous stories about the triangular fields. Allegedly, there was a time that no picture could be developed there for some reason. It never came out. There's that story at Devil's Den with the first Texas soldier, where, people will see an old raggedy guy from Jerome Robertson's brigade, an old guy from the first Texas, no shoes on probably, just raggedy, disheveled, kind of like a Saturday morning of Goderich. After a tough night, but people would see that and he would be always walk around just disheveled, like not knowing what was going on, like a classic residual haunting. Like he would just probably got killed and what the hell, and just kind of walking around, and that's another popular one. But people, it's so funny every so often you go on the serious Facebook pages about Gettysburg, and you can't talk about these things because I would no.
Very bad.
We don't do that here. But some of the ones I've been banned from, but that's okay. It's okay. Thank you, Andrea Pike. Appreciate that.
That's life goals, right? Sometimes.
I got banned for liking a comment. I didn't even say anything. I liked a comment, and she got banned, and I got banned too. It's like I thrown out of the bar together. I was just standing there. That's another story. It's all like this is a whole new thing. I mean, people talk about, I was going with this, and they say, well, the ghosting's all a bunch of bullshit. They just started to sell tickets. You've been on Steinway, walk up and down the street, and they want to sell $10 for a ticket, and they tell you some stupid fake story. But people have been worried about this for a long time. I mean, Lincoln himself was big into ghosts. He had seances in the White House.
Exactly.
Yeah, I knew that.
Him, obviously Mary Lincoln, not Mary Todd Lincoln, learned out the hard way recently, but it's Mary Lincoln. But they would have, for Willie, who unfortunately had passed away, they would have seances to try to connect with him. So they were very big into the spiritualism. And after Abe was killed, she would continue to have these seances in the White House to try to connect with the ghost of her husband. And so this is not a new phenomenon.
No.
I mean, and there are soldiers who made careers of it. You know who Ambrose Bierce is, Mary?
Yep.
Jen?
I've heard the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. He's from the 9th Indiana, and this is a guy who apparently got everywhere. He was at the Battle of Philippi with McClellan. Again, goes back to McClellan, okay, who Jen's a huge fan of now, by the way. It's another story.
She's a McClellan fangirl.
I just don't think he's as bad as everybody said he was.
She's a McClellan fangirl on Twitter. You can follow Jen at McClellan fangirl on Twitter.
That's not my Twitter.
But it's going to be. We should have made it seem McClellan fangirl. Oh, God damn it. Anyway, I digress.
There's still the Facebook Live.
I was going to say Saturday.
That's true. But he wrote a lot of spooky ghost soldier books about this. And what's so funny about this is I looked him up, and I remembered him from before, and I was looking for stories this morning, and this is kind of weird. I was researching his stuff a little while ago this morning, probably around 11 o'clock when I was supposed to be working. Andrea Pike, who we know Andrea, and she's the one who would be banned from the Sirius place, by the way, Jen. That was her. She messaged on our Facebook page, make sure you talk about the story of Ambrose Bierce. And I was like, oh my God. Because I was at that very moment I was looking at it. So I don't know, maybe, I don't know. He was a soldier, and he basically would write ghost stories later on, wrote the Devil's Dictionary, which is considered a masterpiece. I admittedly haven't read it, but apparently. But he fought at all the spots. He fought at Shiloh, Chickamauga, Resaca, Perryville, Chattanooga. He was a map maker, apparently, on the battlefield, and so he was one of those topography people. But here's one for you, Fincheroo, that you're going to like this one, okay? Yeah. When he went to West Point, he applied for West Point. He had 3 generals vouch for him. You know what those three generals were?
Oliver Otis Howard.
Howard was one.
Sherman.
And who's the third?
I want to say Grant or Thomas.
Thomas.
Oh.
So your trifecta, Howard, Sherman, and
Thomas.
I know, I was getting there. They were the ones who signed his application to get into that. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's very cool.
He got a substantial head injury at Kennesaw Mountain. So he was basically that. He basically would go on to write several fiction books. He was allegedly the inspiration for Stephen Crane. All those books he did, obviously Hemingway as well. Mm-hmm. But here's what gets weird with him. So he basically decides in 1913 to go back and visit the battlefields in Louisiana and Texas. Now, by now he's a famous writer, and he's going to go check out the battlefields. He wanted to go see him. So he goes down there. You know what happens? He vanishes. And no one ever sees him again. So he goes down there to visit the battlefields, and all of a sudden, and to this day, they have no idea where he is.
Wow.
So I'm gonna guess he didn't make it because it's been a long time ago. But he went down there to visit his old battlefields again, and no one ever heard from him again. And to this day, they have no idea. No one ever found him. There's no answer to what happened to him. So he's just gone. Isn't that cool?
That's kind of creepy, but it is really cool. I never knew that.
Really, I didn't know that about him. I mean, I've heard of him before. Wow.
Yeah. So I maybe. Who the hell knows what happened,
Creepy.
Maybe it was the Rhodes Woods clown.
Down there in Louisiana.
We don't know. Maybe it was the Bayou clown. But that's one of those things where it's like it's just neat though. There's so many connections, especially with your guys, your big three. And it was funny that she mentioned him earlier because that's at that very moment she mentioned I was just looking into him.
No.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a cool story.
Maybe he'll be your new favorite author to go along with your new favorite general. And you can make a tweet about it that pisses everybody off.
Yes, I should do that like I did with Howard.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's always fun to piss people off. I have a new general. Fuck you.
Everyone, guess what? Hear ye, hear ye.
You got to start it that way. Hear ye, hear ye.
Oh, that's what I remember. I made that picture, remember?
Yep.
With the bell thing?
Yeah, I remember that.
Stupid. So stupid.
So Jen, do you have some more stories for us?
I do. Since we were talking about generals, this is another ghost. I go on ghost tours just for fun and to relax, but the more determined I am not to see anything, something always happens.
Yeah.
But so we were on a different tour, and we were actually farther down out, like behind one of the Victorian photo studios.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be across the street from the Dairy Queen. I don't know if it's still a photo studio or not. So we're in the back, and the guy's telling us all these stories. And he said one of the things, it was the building that they took General Reynolds to, where he passed away.
Oh yeah, it's still a photo studio.
Okay.
The George House.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were behind that building, and he was talking about how the picture window changes and all these things. Like the window in front will change, and you'll see scenes of battle or scenes of them trying to operate on General Reynolds. And they said sometimes you even see a woman all in black who's sitting up there.
Oh wow.
And they think it might be possibly Reynolds' fiance who came looking for, Kate, who came looking for him after he was killed. So we're all standing behind the building, and I was like, well, this is stupid. If everything happens at the front of the building, why the hell are we all standing back here? So I marched my ass up front, turned the corner, and there was a woman in black sitting on the bench.
Oof.
But I could see through her. And I looked at her, and we were both like, oh crap. And then she vanished, and I was like, it was weird though, because normally you'd go running back to the ghost tour and be like, oh my God, you guys, I saw something. But it just felt so sad that I was like, okay, she's here mourning, I'm going to leave her alone. And I just very quietly whispered, I'm not going to tell anybody, I'm going to walk away and leave you be. I was so not expecting to see anything, because I marched up at her with the attitude like, this is stupid. Why is everybody at the back of the building if everything happened at the front of the building? And I turned the corner and was like, oh, hello there.
Her story is so sad. She did come to Gettysburg when she found out, because she didn't live far from there. And one of the stories that I know, I don't know if it's true. If it is, it's really cool. So she went in and she said, I want to see General Reynolds. And they were like, who are you? He didn't have a girlfriend, or are you his sister? She said, I'm his fiance. No, he had not told anybody they were engaged. They had to keep it a secret. She was a Catholic and he was Protestant.
Yeah.
And she said, if you look in his front pocket, you will find my photograph. And they looked, and there it was.
Yeah. And then she had a ring from him that had like Love Kate or something on it. So
yeah. And there's some artifacts of, I think, his at the Seminary Ridge Museum.
Yes, there is. Laura and I were there.
Remember, I was looking at them, and I had this overwhelming feeling of sadness come over me. And that's a
sad place.
It is a sad place, but it was specifically to do with him. Mm-hmm. And I've always thought that it was her spirit that was in there. That she's there. She's still hanging around there, probably. Yeah, looking for him.
Well, I'm sure that's who I saw. Yeah. It has to be.
Well, I know I felt something I felt something in the Seminary Museum, looking at his artifacts, and it was just this overwhelming feeling of sadness. And I've always thought that it was her that was in that room there too, because I felt something there. Sometimes you don't have to see something; you can just feel it and know that it's there. But I was all of a sudden very sad, and I just remember looking at the artifacts, thinking, "This is," because it was talking about her too with this stuff as well, and I was like, "Oh, this is sad."
I think Albert Einstein, who was making his debut on the podcast, by the way, Albert Einstein, I haven't mentioned yet before. I think he was the one who had said that energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be displaced. Yeah. So if that's the case, all that we talked about at the beginning, all that negative energy in a place where the true sadness, like a place like Gettysburg or Antietam or Vicksburg or Chickamauga, any of the places, it's got to go somewhere. And a lot of it just stays, going back to Chamberlain's quote, right? And there's been the thing that's interesting about these battlefields, and it's they're all different, but the one constant about every single battlefield is when you're sitting there, whether you're on Little Round Top or Snodgrass Hill or the cornfield or wherever, you get this feeling of complete peace when you're at these battlefields. It's almost like that ground gave up every ounce of evil it could ever have at once and purged it. And it just feels like this it's like the most, like we were sitting there Round Top and smoking those cigars again. It just feels like this is the most violent, arguably ground in the Northern Hemisphere, Western Hemisphere. Northern? What the hell are we here? Western Hemisphere.
Yes.
But it's somewhere.
Look at you and your geography. You're as good at geography as I am at math.
Oh, look at that, huh? Look at that. You want to talk about how you screwed up the time? Anyway, look, never mind. But what I was saying was, is you're killing my emotional moment here, Fincher.
Sorry.
But what happened was, you have that feeling of like just pure peace and tranquility. And it's the most violent place that you could probably be, but it just has that real feeling. And you can really feel that energy, that peaceful, overwhelming piece of tranquil. But then you go to certain places and it just changes. You just feel like the air has been let out of the room. There are certain places you go where you just feel negative. Just little places. Spangler Springs like that at Gettysburg. The Triangular Fields like that. Herb's Woods is like that. If you go down a Willoughby Run, it's like that. If you go down by the water, it just feels like it's not that peaceful place anymore. It's different.
Yeah, Herb's Woods, Reynolds Woods too, right? Like that's too.
You know what else is like that is Cashtown Inn in Cashtown.
Yeah.
Now it's not just a negative energy because the owners are miserable, and you can just actually just feel the actual energy inside there. It just feels like this dreadful feeling sometimes, and so you get these feelings. So there's definitely energy shifts. Who knows if it's paranormal or it's just barometric or who the hell knows? But you can definitely feel it.
It's something you can't explain. I had that feeling at Reynolds Woods when I started to go down the path, and I stopped. I remember looking around to either side of me and feeling just nervous, and I was expecting something to come, like just had this feeling of like unease and all that. And it was so different from the feeling I had at Little Round Top. Like just this
Round Top's a special place. It's just it's just the
It
most
is.
peaceful. You can sit up at Little Round Top, and I have a little secret place where I go, and I'm not going to tell anybody where it is. I don't want you coming, okay? But you can sit up there, and you can just feel like every worry in your body gone. You can just feel it, whether it's be work or who the hell, whatever it is. You just feel that this overwhelming peace of just peacefulness and just relaxation. And I think a lot of people have those feelings at these battlefields. And I'm not saying it's paranormal, the ghost of Robert E. Lee's gonna come ride by or something, but it's still cool to, that'd be cool though. So come back here, sir.
Well, I get the same feeling.
We have flapjacks in Tall Mountain, sir. Come back.
I can tell you that when you both finally get to Chickamauga and go to Snodgrass Hill, I can tell you that I want to know if you get the same feeling there as you do at Little Round Top, because I definitely do. It's a feeling of peace, of positivity. It's where I like to go, at the end of the day after I've been touring. It'd be the perfect place to have a cigar, maybe wine if you sneak it in. I did.
Where? To Chickamauga?
It's not Grass Hill. Like it's such a feeling of positivity, of peace. I never want to leave when I'm there. I get the same feeling when I'm at Little Round Top, the exact same feeling. So I think there's places on every battlefield that are like that where you can go and just have this feeling of absolute peace and positivity. Because as you said, Darren, there was so much given, and then that's just at that one spot.
There's some scary names like Devil's Den sounds scary, but it's not. I don't think it's really a paranormal. That's an old Indian name. It goes back way before the battle. The Indians used to call it there because you couldn't plant anything. It was all fragrant rocks. The devil must own the ground. Either that or it's the legend of the snake.
I've heard both.
There. Yeah, probably both. I'm all. By the way, I'm all set with the snakes. Yeah, I heard that story. I'm like, I'm never going to fucking Devil's Den again. Not a snake guy. Nope, no way. Nope, not going to do it. It is a nice place to go, and especially when you're at a sunset. The sun setting just right. It's perfect humidity. It's a low key good experience. To put it that way. When you're up at Little Round Top, it's fantastic. So it is. Beauty is overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah,
it's like Little Round Top. But again, who knows what kind of energy that brings? But who knows? I mean, I think it'd be cool to see something spooky there. I think people go to places like Gettysburg because that's just exactly where you think you'd find it.
Wait until we all go somewhere. You'll see things.
Yeah,
we'll see this. We'll see Fincher the shopping cart being pushed back at the hotel at 2:00.
No.
I mean, I've seen stuff on Snodgrass Hill. Like I've seen, the images, just brief flashes of soldiers there. It's just very brief. But I think if you're someone who is sensitive to that or believes in it or whatever, I can't explain it, but I know what I saw and I know what I felt, kind of thing.
You can always feel like when something's not right, like when someone's looking at you, or you see somebody and you just know that person's not the kind of. There's just something creepy about certain people. You can sense it. You got that spidey sense that it just kind of tells you. And you go to a place like any of these battlefields, there are certain places you go, and it just feels like this is something there. And every so often you'll glimpse out of the corner of your eye and you'll see something, then it's gone. Who knows what it is? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't buy a lot. I mean, obviously, both Jen and I have experience with the ghost tour TV show people, and we know a lot of that is bullshit. But it's all based on something. And what's good about, I mentioned before, it's good about these ghost stories, these battlefields. Every one of them is based on some kind of history. So for the people who don't like the ghosts, learn what's behind it. Whether this be the Amos Humison story, the ghost story of the orphanage, the Rosa Carmichael one we mentioned before, all the ones, because every one of them is based on some human that's worth learning about. And that's what's neat about it. It's just understanding that the overall history of it. It isn't about just being scared. It's about it's an alternative, well, not alternative, but it's a different type of history, another way to learn. It's a backdoor way to learn the history.
Yeah. Well,
for some people it resonates,
Well, it's like Jen and I both have had experience with Reynolds' fiance, Kate. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And to know her backstory makes it make more sense why she would be there. She never marries. She ends up spending her life, I think, in a convent.
She left the convent and became a teacher.
Yeah, that's
but
too.
Yeah.
I bet she was a fun teacher. Oh, you were in a convent, now you're a teacher. Oh, how come? I'd love to be in your class. But what's creepy about Reynolds is this isn't really a paranormal story. Is a story of his body. When I went back to Lancaster, and I noticed I pronounced it right, Mary. I didn't butcher like you did a few weeks ago. I'm going to say Lancaster. It's Lancaster.
Yeah, it's Lancaster, Ohio.
I told you they got to change the name. I told you that. You're not pronouncing it right. You got to change it, okay? So his body, ultimately, they couldn't get it beyond the Confederate lines. So they had to basically sneak it all the way around and get back, and it took forever to get back. There's a YouTube video, if you go on, it's basically like tracks John Reynolds' body back to Lancaster. And it's a neat watch. It's creepy. And he went through his post-mortem stuff was pretty brutal about, they had to get him back, and he was kind of rotting, and then this box was leaking, and it's not a very good story. It's a human story. It's part of his history, and it's all these backstories that's why it's important to learn the people, right? We keep saying this, to learn the people, to understand what they're all about.
Yeah. Well, how many people would go on that, might go to Gettysburg and go on a tour and hear about the lady in black, right? And then go find out who she was. It's probably Kate, right? And then somebody knows about her. And maybe they go and learn more about other stuff too. So there is history to this stuff.
There is. I mean, there's obviously the lady in white at Spangler Spring. If you talk to the Rangers there, like some of my Ranger friends, they won't talk about the ghost thing. They just don't talk about it. You get them at the bar, they will afterwards. They talk about it. That's the truth. But they don't. If you go during the day, they don't. But it is an interesting history when you learn it, and it's fascinating because it's a place that, if put it this way, if ghosts exist, if they really do, it's going to be in a battlefield. It just has to be. I mean, because where else, for all the things we talked about before, that seems to be the logical place for it. So if you're going to be a ghost hunter, not Slimer, I don't mean that type of ghost, but if you want to see like a real type of thing, that's probably the best place to go. Yeah. But the best place to see a ghost is? I guarantee you'll see one if you want to go. Haunted Mansion at Disney. Every time. Every time you'll see one every time. You're like, oh my God, where?
Apparently Savannah, you can go to Savannah, Georgia. Notice me segueing back into our topic.
Oh yeah, look at you, huh? Look at you, the responsible one now all of a sudden, Fincher.
Savannah is one of the most haunted cities in the United States. It's also the place where Uncle Blingy, aka General Sherman, marched to the sea. There's a place there called Moon River Brewery, which was an abandoned hotel, which was closed in 1864, around the time Sherman marched his way into Savannah. Reopened as a brewery, I think, in the 1990s. It's very, very haunted, apparently. But it was also a hospital during the Civil War, and also afterwards it was used as a hospital too, and there was outbreaks of yellow fever there. So I would see it as being a very negative energy place. A lot of the Confederate and Union soldiers that were held there, they didn't make it out of there. It makes sense if a lot of them are still there, but it is one of the more haunted buildings in Savannah. So if you're a beer drinker and into the paranormal like we are, might be a good place to consider visiting.
Good place to haunt someday. That's where I would go. Haunt a brewery.
Oh, I would haunt a brewery.
It'd be booze.
You mean you wouldn't haunt the Boo Barn?
I would like to haunt the brewery at the Rough and Ready, because that sounds like a lot of fun.
Because you can hang out with Bushrod.
We go to Rough and Ready. We go down to Georgia, and we haunt the brewery there. That's what we would do with old Bushrod. And we go hang out down there at the old boo/bang barn. And it's Boo Barn for this Halloween season, by the way.
Yeah, Boo Barn. Yeah. So Jen, did you have any more stories that you wanted to share?
I have a couple quick ones, and neither of these are Gettysburg, so I thought that would be...
No, that's perfect.
But you were talking about, Darren was talking earlier about like how you can feel the different emotion at places.
Yep.
And several years ago, my friend and I were at Petersburg, and it was the 150th of the start of the Battle of the Crater. And one of the things we wanted to find is there's a city cemetery that just has a ton of Confederate soldiers buried there because they would die right there, and the ladies that lived in town would take them and bury them in the cemetery, so they were taken care of. Well, we went in there to look around because it's got a chapel that's supposed to have amazing stained glass windows. And so we're walking around. After a little while, I started just not feeling right. And it turned from like feeling uneasy to a full blown migraine. And I told my friend, I said, I have to get out of here. I said, and I had driven, I said, I'm going to leave the car. I got to get outside this cemetery. I cannot stay here anymore. I said, it is so angry. It's making me sick. And as soon as we drove off, my headache started to go away.
Wow.
Like as soon as we crossed the gate to leave that cemetery, yep. I started feeling better. Yeah, so that's definitely an angry place. So be careful if you ever go to that one.
Wow.
Well, you wonder what the story is behind, and let's just go with the preposition that it's all true, just so people can say, what do you think the basis would be about an angry spirit? Why would it go where you're perpetually there in some sort of suspended animation? Why would you be angry?
Braxton Bragg is self-explanatory.
Well, I mean, maybe the military. We don't know how his personal life would be. Yeah. He had a nice dog.
Braxy?
Wasn't he treated well?
He liked his wife. He and his wife got along just peachy, apparently. He just hated everybody else.
Yeah, you're in the great whatever that comes after, and all of a sudden, you're a ghost. And how would you be mayor if you were a ghost?
Besides haunt you and call you fucker.
That's what it would be, actually. But I don't know. I guess it depends on the situation. I guess that's the thing. Is, ghosts have personalities? Are they going to take out their anger towards you or somebody around you, or are they just going to be kind of there? And maybe to your point, like the one when you talk about the Grove, Jen, about are they angry because they see a happy family structure of a teenage girl that they didn't get to have? Mm-hmm. Is it more jealousy? Do they have emotions, right? Or are they just kind of there? I don't know. I guess that's the cool part about it. It's great to talk about, because it'd be spooky to imagine that they can be there and their personalities can affect other people, like real people around them. Mm-hmm. You're in a shitty mood for some reason. Somebody yells at you for no reason. Kind of like this morning, and all of a sudden, it just affects your mood for a little while. It's seriously. It's just like the energy changes in you because of something does. But usually if it's a person, you get it. But all of a sudden, mood just changes for no reason. Who knows? Maybe, right? You never know.
Yeah. What do you think, Jen, from your experience there? Were you?
I heard one of the ladies that was on my ghost hunting team had been a nun and was kind of taking a break from it. She had some physical disabilities, and she had a service dog, and there were some conflicts there. So she had stopped, kind of left where she was living for a while, and was paranormal investigating with us. And one of the things she said when we were training that always stuck with me was, people don't necessarily change, like spirits don't change just because they die. Mm-hmm. If you were a jerk in life, you're probably going to be a jerk in death if you linger. Yeah. If you were a nice person, you're going to be a nice person. If you had anger management problems, that will probably continue. So that always made a lot of sense to me, why some people would be like, oh, I passed away. You can't find your keys. They're over here. Here you go. Yeah. That kind of thing. And then others are like, get out.
I've encountered that, like at a cemetery in Cincinnati. I encountered two complete opposites. I went to visit General Hooker's grave, and it was, and this might be surprising for somebody here, it's a very positive place. Very positive, very peaceful. I wandered on down not very far, to Salmon Chase's grave where he's buried with his daughter. I managed to stay there for about 3 minutes, and I started to feel angry. And then I realized it was the energy, and I'm like, whatever's going on here, I can't stay. So I ran back to Hooker's grave. Just so I could feel that positive energy again.
I told Mary, she ran to the embrace of a hooker.
I did.
You got to do what you got to do.
I did. I had to do it at that time. But no, it's just, I've never experienced that in a cemetery before. Often when I go to cemeteries, it's completely peaceful. This one, like Salmon Chase's grave with his daughter, was one of it was not as negative as Bragg's headquarters, but it was close.
The only grave I've been to, well, there's really two. I've been at two, because like the rest of us, I like to hang around in the cemeteries and do all that stuff. But there's two graves I've been to that really just is a feeling of real emotion. One was Mary Surratt's grave in Washington, D.C., in Mount Olivet, where you just felt like this overwhelming gloom of just like this pall that just hangs over you. And you just feel so bad. It's just, they had this like just change. The other one was up here, my neck of the woods, up at Lizzie Borden's grave in Fall River. That's another one. I'll tell a quick story about the cigar. I think I told you the story. Yeah, with the cigar.
Where
Borden.
you dropped it.
Yeah. So I'm up there. I'd like to go to cigar. It's like take cigar pickers at gravestone. I just don't know why I've done that, but I was there one day and I finally found a grave. And it's a pain in the ass to find. And I was firing up a cigar and I took my selfie with the thing. And at the very moment I dropped the cigar, I just dropped it, and it rolled like right next to the gravestone. I'm like, fucking good. So I had to go. It was kind of like a February, March. It was kind of cold. So I go to grab it. I'm on my knees grabbing it. The very moment this friggin' family walks by, and I'm like praying to Lizzie Borden's gravestone. And the look they gave me, I'm like, oh, come on. They walk by, and I'm like on my knees at her gravestone. I'm like, complete weirdo. But I grabbed my cigar. I'm like, no, but her gravestone was a very negative one too. You can actually feel it, the sorrow. And
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the guilt of Mary Surratt Noor and Lizzie Borden, both innocent. But I think the reality is you could definitely feel the negative energy around places like that. And I think it's because it's that negative energy of just sadness about their deaths and how they died.
I do agree with Jen points too, though, about like if you were a jerk in real life.
Yeah, when she said that, it always made a lot of sense.
I think that's what I mean. Braxton Bragg, he did not like admittedly, I was not being I was doing all the stereotypical Bragg stories, argued with himself and all that. He probably didn't like that, but
pissing off people who've been dead 100-something years. What a surprise. It's gotta be you.
Didn't piss off General Thomas. He was very happy at Snodgrass Hill.
Yeah, he probably totally was. But I think the energy is a good point. I mean, if you're angry in life, angry in death, and if you felt, I don't know. I guess I always thought like when you die, you get some kind of like absolution. Like you just feel like, you just all your negative. I guess not.
I think if you want it, you can get it. But
Exactly.
some people probably don't.
They just don't. But I think the other thing too that I just thought of is that, three of us are all into the paranormal. We all experience it in very different ways. Some of us some of us will see, and I'm not just talking about the three of us here, but those of us that are, experience it, some of us see stuff, some of us feel the energy. It's all very different experiences that we can't explain, but it's something that we all feel and experience. And it's part of the whole thing about, for me, it's as much about studying the Civil War as it is about the history of it. It all factors into it. Because it makes them more human. It makes you go out to learn more stories about them because there is history behind these ghost stories and all. They're not just ghost stories. They have a history. They have a basis,
Yeah, learn who these people were, why they died, why they may be there. And you'll learn a lot more get more of a global 360 view into that person. Whether it be, Reynolds at the George house to Jen's story earlier, or whether it be, Amos Humiston, or whether it be the Blue Boy or whatever. It's fun trying to find out the background to it and just seeing how it all works itself out. And it can give you a different perspective into history. And that's really beyond the books, beyond the Coddingtons and beyond the Fonzes and all. And it's not a question of believing or not believing in that stuff. It doesn't matter if you believe it, you don't believe it. Doesn't freaking matter to me. If you study the stuff and you learn the basis behind it, you can learn a different part of history that you probably wouldn't have normally. And that's the best part about it.
Yeah. And to me, you don't necessarily have to see stuff. Have I seen stuff? Yes, I have. Have I felt stuff? Yeah. And it's all just an experience that I can't explain, but I know what I felt at the time, and also like I know what I saw, and I think it's one of those things that just like we're all different people, we all experience it differently.
Yeah.
People take things people deal with emotions, people deal with stress, people deal with work different ways. So if there is a paranormal world around us, we're gonna sense it different ways.
Exactly.
There's no question.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have one final story, and it's actually something that happened at Appomattox Courthouse, so it's kind of a fitting last story.
Awesome.
But I think this is probably my favorite personal experience that I've ever had. My friend and I were out walking kind of like behind the house in the buildings where they have a sign pointing to where Chamberlain saluted the Confederates, where the two of them saluted each other. So we're kind of standing, it's almost like a little bit of you can see a path has been maintained there. And we're standing there, and I could hear coming up this road, I could hear footsteps and noise like soldiers coming. And like I could feel them marching on the ground. And it was so powerful that I actually I sat right in the middle of that path. My friend's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah," but I was like, I can hear the salute and the surrender. I said, I can hear them turning in their arms. I can hear it. So I sat there until it faded away, but I actually could hear, like, I couldn't make out words or anything, but like you could hear the murmuring and the soldiers talking. And I heard a couple things that sounded like commands, but like I could feel and hear the footsteps. And obviously there was nothing there, like nothing visible that we could see.
Yep.
I think that's probably my favorite.
That's
it wasn't
cool.
scary. It was just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, I sat down right in the middle of the path and people were walking by and they're like, is she okay? My friend's like, yeah, she's fine. She's just having a moment.
She just saw a ghost, a whole bunch of them. You didn't see them? They're right around you.
That one still gives me chills because it was so cool to just hear that happening.
Yeah. But for people, to go out to these battlefields, just keep an open mind. Whether you believe stuff or see stuff, it doesn't matter. But just keep an open mind to it, because you never know. You never know.
Pick
right?
up, like, try and focus on the energy that's there too, because sometimes it's not about seeing something; it's about the energy that is there.
Yeah, you can feel it.
Yeah, you definitely can feel it. When I started opening myself up more to it, when I went there when I was 10, like, it's different when you're a kid. Like, I was completely open to it, and I came away like totally like not like just like woo. Like, as I got older, I found myself kind of maybe more closed off to it. But then I just started like, you know what? I'm just gonna feel what I feel. And now when I go to battlefields, it's like, okay, it's negative, positive, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just be aware of it, be open to it. Yeah, are there people going to try to make a buck on it and make their little things? Was that story in the Gettysburg Times today about, which was a great story. I just have to, you just have to do this sometimes, okay?
Yeah.
These people are out on a ghost tour and they're getting the shit scared out of them. And some fucking guy, he wears a mask and he like invades and scares the hell out of everybody. And they beat the guy up. The people in the ghost tour jumped and beat the hell out of him. And I guess it's whatever. It's you want to deal with human pain or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, the idea of just trying to scare somebody in a ghost tour, I've thought of a million freaking times. There was that time we were up by the O statue, and there were the people down by the Grove, down in that area. Okay. I kept yelling, Jen, boo! And you thought it was a ghost. You told the story tonight. But we snuck down, me and my friend Mike, we snuck down to right behind it. And we were just watching people. We were just throwing rocks in the woods. And people, what was that? So it's funny. I've always thought you have fun like that with people. But that's, it's sad someone got hurt. That's sad, but it's still a funny story.
Yeah. I could say right now, Bent Neck Lady might come haunt you tonight.
Oh, my God. If anybody who's seen the Haunting of Hill House, holy crap! Jen, you mentioned you haven't seen that?
No, I don't have TV. I just have like Amazon Prime and stuff like that. So I'll just see if I can get it at my. I'll have to look for it.
Yeah, it's good.
It's
I listen to podcasts and read. I'm not a TV watcher.
Yeah.
Well, you'd love it. It's really, really good. That Bent Neck Lady team. My God, that whole thing.
Yeah. Well, guys, I think we should probably start, unfortunately, wrapping up. This has been a great discussion, but I think we can definitely carry it on the live on Saturday. So if there's any more stories that we
I might have a few more that I could bring up that I didn't want to bring up tonight, but I could share then.
So Jen is going to grace us with her presence at the live on Saturday.
Yeah,
she's going to refrain from her run. You could run in place while you're doing this if you really want to. If you want to do that,
I can always run before or after too, though.
You probably can. If you listen after, you can listen to the podcast today while you're listening to it. But definitely, we'll be back here on Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yep. So this episode will drop, ironically, on Halloween Day on Saturday.
Actually, I think I am going to wait to release it on Halloween.
You should wait till midnight and drop it right at midnight. Witching hour. But either way, so we will do this.
I can schedule it to drop at midnight, and that's what I'm going to do.
Okay. So we will definitely, I think it's appropriate that we dress in some kind of costume for the occasion. And we'll definitely talk about this. So if you're watching this, you drop it. Be prepared to talk about ghost stories, and it's a non-judgmental zone.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to talk about it. If something scared the shit out of you as a kid, you saw old grandma in the attic 50 years after she died, feel free to talk about it. I mean, it's a fun thing to talk about. Halloween's a great time of the year. I mean, it's costume and candy, but there's a lot behind it too. It's my favorite holiday. Halloween's always my favorite holiday. Admittedly, it has.
Yeah,
it's just a great holiday. So enjoy it. Watch out for the spooks and the specters. And Mary, I assume you'll be egging houses as usual on Halloween.
Yeah,
the good old days.
Egging houses. Yep.
Throwing rocks at those kids in your front yard.
Yep.
Which is very sad. I was not a fan of that.
I'm gonna go toilet paper my parents' house.
Yeah, they probably appreciate that. They probably appreciate the free
toilet
paper.
They will totally know it's me too.
But so I guess we'll call it a night tonight, as the witching hour is upon us, as they say. So anyway, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, thanks for as far as the podcast goes, definitely like us on iTunes. Tell the family, wake up the kids, listen to this, and have a good time with it. We didn't swear as much today, so we may not get the E today, Mary.
No, we're still getting the E. We have to, because I did drop a few fuck bombs.
Jen, wasn't she behaved tonight? Wasn't she like really I thought she was really like what's the phrase? She held it in. She just was very I don't know what's going on. You all right, Mary? You okay?
I'm good.
All right, just making sure. You didn't tell me off for that. You didn't tell me to go in the corner. You didn't tell nothing. That was wow.
I'm just in a good mood. I don't know.
We're gonna have Jen often more often. Apparently, she's like my bodyguard. Apparently, with you.
I'm a positive influence on somebody, I guess. Maybe you behaved better because I was here.
I could have.
I don't know if I did. I mean, man, I thought it was the same as I was. Maybe I was. You know what? I could be a ghost rider. You didn't know it. How do you feel about that?
Whatever.
I'd probably know.
I probably would too. Actually.
Yeah, I would too.
I definitely know.
I would too.
But anyway, so good time. It's good time with both you guys.
Yeah.
It's good to see you both, and we'll definitely have Jen on again. I think we'll have her on to talk about Dan Sickles. I believe we'll do that.
That will be fun.
Yeah.
Near to her heart. And
yeah.
We'll have her shake a leg and get here as soon as possible to talk about Sickles as soon as we can. We'll definitely do that. So anyway, so again, live on Saturday, 10 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Listen for this. Have a wonderful Halloween Eve. Stay out of trouble. And we'll definitely talk to you guys soon.
And Jen, thank you so much for being our guest tonight and sharing your stories and all that. And the one thing
Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. No, you're like, I mean, I figure we're all very like-minded about this about paranormal, about the ghost stories and all that. And one thing I really hope that this episode does is just, if people have stories, they tell them, because it's always interesting to hear. It's awesome to hear people's battlefield experiences, but to hear to hear like, oh, I felt this type of energy here, or just to make it kind of like it's okay to talk about.
And hopefully a lot of people on the live talk about. I would love to hear stories on the live about people's stories. I think that'd be so cool. I mean, everybody loves a good ghost story, but if you're on the live and you want to chime in a little bit, judgmental free zone from me anyway. Finch, probably not so much, but we'll probably Mary will probably make fun of you on Twitter probably.
Jen knows I'm a judgment-free zone, fucker.
Oh yeah, that's exactly how I describe it. That Mary, she's judgmentally free. That's exactly how that's gonna be on your gravestone someday, Fincher. Absolutely, no question. Fucker.
Except for fucker.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anyway, I guess that'll do it for tonight. So, hey, pleasure to see you guys both, and thanks for listening to everybody. Hope we didn't scare you too much. Jen's going to keep me up all night. I'll be scared shitless tonight now. Thank you for that freaking story about goddamn Mathematics Courthouse. Didn't need that, but that's okay.
All right. So until next time, everybody, have a
good night.
Wonderful Saturday, because that's when this drops, as Darren says good night.
Happy Halloween.
Yep. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy
See ya.
Halloween. Boo.
Bye.